Hello, and welcome to the Narrowing Path, Walking the Spiritual Walk. My name is Stephen Adderstein. Thank you for joining me tonight as we go through and we do the next reading from the chapter Hidden Sacrifices from the book Byways of Blessedness by James Allen. It's chapter 5, Hidden Sacrifices. This is a book, I think, 1915, fantastic copy. Absolutely love it. I love to read the originals. Feels like there's some energy to them, but it's been a great walk through this chapter so far. I've really enjoyed it. I hope you all have too. I'm looking forward to getting your feedback on this one. Actually, I think it's a very important topic, and I really enjoyed doing the self-assertion last week as well too. So I hope you all are enjoying that. Go ahead, give us a like, give us a subscribe if you're liking the content coming from here. We also have a Facebook page, an Instagram page, a TikTok as well. We're also published on Spotify podcasts, and you can hear us on Apple Podcasts as well. So I'm looking forward to it. Let's go ahead and get started here. Like I said, we're reading the fifth chapter from James Allen's Byways of Blessedness. Chapter's called Hidden Sacrifices. If you have this copy that I keep referencing, this is the one I highlight, and I do all the fun writing and note taking for the actual show. It's on page 31. It's two paragraphs down, so you can follow along if you'd like. And here we go. Then there's the sacrifice of greed and all greedy thoughts, the willingness that others should possess rather than we, the not coveting of things for ourselves, but rejoicing that they are possessed and enjoyed by others, that they bring happiness to others, the ceasing to claim one's own, and the giving up to others unselfishly and without malice that which they exact. This attitude of mind is a source of deep peace and great spiritual strength. It is the sacrifice of self-interest. Another self. Material possessions are temporary, and in this sense, we cannot truly call them our own. They are merely in our keeping for a short time. But spiritual possessions are eternal and must ever remain with us. Unselfishness is a spiritual possession which is only secured by ceasing to covet material possessions and enjoyments, by ceasing to regard things as for our own special and exclusive pleasure, and by our readiness to yield them up for the good of others. The unselfish man, even though he finds himself involved in riches, stands aloof in his mind from the idea of exclusive possession, and so escapes the bitterness and fear and anxiety which ever accompany the covetous spirit. He does not regard any of his outward accretions as being too valuable to lose, but he regards the virtue of unselfishness as being too valuable to the world, to suffering humanity, to lose or to cast away. And who is the blessed man? He who is ever hankering after more possessions, thinking only of the personal pleasure he can get out of them, or he who is ever ready to give up what he has for the good and happiness of others. By greed, happiness is destroyed. By not greed, happiness is restored. I love that one. I love that one. That speaks directly to the heart of what's going on in today's society. The greed that occurs, the needing of more and more and more, that if I have this, if I have that, if I achieve this, if I achieve that, that suddenly I'm going to be happy. Suddenly I'll be fulfilled and content, and then I'll be able to be a good person to other people. It's like a sickness. It really is. It really is. So I'm really excited to go into this one. Greed and self-interest is the main points of this. So let's go ahead and let's have a conversation about it. So here we go. The way he starts out is just great. Then there's the sacrifice of greed, which most people associate, right? Like the physical action of taking more than we need, of desiring way more than is necessary. But then, and all greedy thoughts. So it's not just the action that needs to stop, it's the thinking. We talk about that a lot with James Allen. He was a very big proponent of the thinking behind the negative act needs to change. This isn't just stop doing the bad thing, because if you don't change the thinking behind it, if you don't change the greedy thoughts behind it, you're going to be greedy still in your heart. And most likely you'll return to your greedy habits, or it'll manifest a different way. So it's not just greed, but all greedy thoughts. So action and thought, really important. The willingness that others should possess rather than we. Now, I don't know about you, but my experience was up until a good couple years into my recovery from substance abuse and drugs and alcohol and doing the spiritual journey, the only thing I ever thought about was what I got. The only thing I ever thought about was what I was getting out of something. If I saw somebody else that had something, I never thought about it in the context of good for them. It was, why don't I have that? Or do I want that? Right? Am I going to covet that? Am I going to desire that of theirs? Right? Like these are different actions that I'm taking now. So that's something I keep in mind, right? When I read that. It's very rare. Well, let me rephrase that. It's very new thinking to me. When I say new, within the last 4 to 5 years, to actually do this, to, how did he phrase it? The willingness that others should possess rather than we. To not look at others in the context of us, but to celebrate someone else's happiness, joy, and contentment with life. I always took someone's happiness. I always tried to drain it from them. It was horrible. So possess rather than we. The not coveting of things for ourselves, but rejoicing that they are possessed and enjoyed by others. Possessed and enjoyed by others, right? So again, changing the perspective from just being solely focused on me, on what I'm getting out of it, to that is awesome. I don't know about you, but I could never be truly happy for anyone else because I was too self-centered. I was too self-absorbed. When I saw someone else as successful, I would immediately try to discount the progress, at least in my own head, right? I was too scared of them finding out that I really wished them ill to actually verbalize it, but I'm sure people picked up on it anyway, that energy type thing. But the reality of it was I wasn't ever really able to help someone find joy, right? When help someone find a way to celebrate a promotion, help someone really share in the joy of a pregnancy announcement even, right? Because all I'm thinking about is, thank God I don't have the kid coming, or wow, I wish I had a kid coming, right? It's just about me. I took everything as egocentric as I absolutely could, right? And if it was something I wanted, I coveted it. I wanted it, right? I would try to figure out a way for me to get it. If I couldn't take it from them, I would find a way to copy it. And that was pretty hellish for a lot of people in my life, including myself. It was a miserable way to live. But to not coveting things from ourselves, but rejoicing, like, because there's a difference, isn't there? Right? There's a difference between just being a neutral party and just being like, oh, yeah, good for them, right? Which is really it's the first step in stopping old behavior and stopping old thinking, right? Because some of us take a little bit of time to actually get to the new behaviors. But it's much different to just remain neutral as to allowing yourself to be genuinely happy and joyful for somebody else. Very, very different things. And I didn't really know that. And mine was, I thought about it in selfish context. And when I stopped that, the first stop I got was the neutral ground, the snobbish, like, well, it doesn't matter to me. Why should I care, right? Detach myself entirely because I didn't know how not to be selfish with it. So I just kind of disassociated. And it was kind of a just put space there, act neutral, act like it doesn't affect me at all, which is just ridiculous. But it robbed me from the opportunity to actually share true joy and true happiness with somebody, right? The rejoicing that they are possessed and enjoyed by others, right? Being happy, genuinely happy for others took a long time, right? I love self-pity. That's one of my favorite ones. I love jealousy. That's another one of my favorite character defects, one of the favorite behaviors that I had manifested and grown into, we'll say. And this says we can't do that anymore because that's thinking about things in terms of me and I and what I want and what I'm doing. And that doesn't really help anybody. That doesn't do anything good for anybody. All it does is make me miserable and make other people not want to be around me. So, this rejoicing that they are possessed and enjoyed by others was something I had to learn. And I had to be willing to see that I was doing the opposite. That they bring happiness to others. I also think I resented that. When I would see other people, whether it was another couple or another individual or another person at my work, coworker, or a friend, and I would see them be genuinely happy, it upset me. I didn't like it. And I didn't like it because I never thought I could experience that. I thought that was something so far out of reach for me that it was just ludicrous for me to even consider that I would have that. Joy was a foreign word to me. I didn't know what that actually felt like or what that meant. True happiness, true contentment, true peace, never thought that was in the cards for me. Honestly, I didn't even know if I believed it was real. So when I would see other people exuding that, I would be so critical. And I couldn't share that with them. I couldn't share in their joy. And to be honest with you, I think joy is one of the most vulnerable things to share with somebody else. Because so many people want to just suck the happiness out of people's lives, to destroy it, to insult it, to belittle it, to reframe it in a negative way, right? So when you actually share joy with people, I do believe it's sometimes one of the scariest things you can do. So it was, this celebrating other people was quite difficult for me. And not only was it difficult, I believe I resented them for it. Happiness to others. The ceasing to claim one's own and giving up to others unselfishly and without malice, that which they exact. So this is the opposite of greed. This is what we're supposed to be practicing, is what James Allen's saying here, that we're supposed to, let me read it again here, giving up to others unselfishly and without malice, like not begrudgingly saying, yeah, this is yours, right? So he's saying disconnect from the ownership piece of things, right? Let these things go. This is not, though I greatly appreciate them, these books are not me. All of these books, I'm a temporary holder. I bought them from someone else. Someone else will one day have these, God willing, I guess, to share in the information and in the knowledge, but these books are not mine. I am the temporary custodian. I think I think he uses that term later on, but, or something similar. But so when I give to somebody else, whether it's of my time, whether it's of my emotion, whether it's of my money, whether it's of my material possessions, and I'm not perfect at this, okay? This is not something that I execute on 100% all the time. I just want to say that in the front end because I don't want to come off as any arrogance about this, because this is probably this is one of the ones I struggle with the most still, is not becoming attached. But we're supposed to get rid of this sense of ownership of this is mine over all of these things and to be willing to part with them unselfishly and without malice. So I don't have a resentment. Like I would give people things, then I'd like hold a scorecard. I'd be like, okay, I gave them this, and this, and guess what? They owe me now, or they're going to give me this back, or this is what's going to happen going forward, right? Like I took it as a opportunity to exact my will over them, right? And when they didn't respond appropriately, I had all these little hidden contracts, and they didn't respond appropriately to me, I would get resentful, right? So without malice, without ill will, we're supposed to be without malice and ill will, but I was filled with it every time. Every time when I used to smoke cigarettes, I would loan people cigarettes just to remember who I would loan cigarettes to, so I could go to them when I needed one, and I would expect they would repay the favor. And even when I was or let's say I only had a few cigarettes left, and I would give somebody a cigarette, it would be so difficult because I was attached to them. I needed them. Like, well, I've only got 4 left. If I give them one, I don't know when I'm picking up my next pack. Do I have enough money in my pocket? Where's the next gas station? Especially in early recovery, money was not plentiful. I had no vehicle, right? So like, what am I doing here? So without malice, giving up to that which they exact, that which they need, right? To be supportive, to be unselfish, to be caring, kind, and giving to our fellow man, right? To our brothers and sisters in this world. All right. Ceasing to claim one's own. There we go. This attitude of mind is a source of deep peace and great spiritual strength. Now, when I am able to practice this, and I am able to really release my attachment to these physical objects, release my attachment to these worldly things, and view them as just what I have right now, as temporary possessions that I am given the responsibility to manage, is really what it is, right? Like, these things are under my domain and control, but they are not mine. And it's my responsibility to use them, disperse them appropriately with good intention and principled behavior, following God's will, someone might say, right? So all of the things I have, all of the physical possessions that are under my dominion, they're to be of use and to be of service to those around us, to God and others, some might say, right? To the God of your understanding, however he sees, he, she, it, universe, source, energy, wherever you land with that, wherever it seems fit for those to be implemented and used or parted with. Right? Sometimes I'm sure I have books here that I would only possess to make sure another person gets them in the grand scheme of life. Right? To pass these on to somebody else because they need that information. So and when I can do that, when I can detach from these things, when I can not let these material possessions define me, it is a deep sense of peace. The fear of them disappearing, the fear of losing them and not having enough goes away. Right? When I take those attachment hooks out of these things in our lives, whether it could be a person, whether it could be a physical things like books, right? Money, we're talking vehicles, we're talking a job, right? When you take your attachment out of it and you let it be exactly what it is, you don't need it to be anything different so you feel fulfilled, because that's what it is. I'm serving my own fears and self-interest and insecurities, right? When I take the attachment out of that, God, it's so freeing. And also, like, you're more less things have control over you in this physical world, right? The less attachments you have in a healthy way, right? And the more attachments you have to God of your understanding, because everything's supposed to be attached to Him. And then we facilitate God's will through our lives, through our actions, and we get to use these things that we have available to us to help facilitate that, right? So when we do that, it is a source of deep spiritual strength because I'm not attached to it all. I have reliance upon a God of my understanding then instead of a reliance upon money, a reliance upon power, property. I get to let those things go. They don't have control over me anymore. It's such a blessing. So when he says, is it source of deep peace and great spiritual strength? I happen to agree with him. Again, I don't do it perfect, but when I do really live in this practice, I feel so much freedom and so much peace. So really powerful stuff here. And then he summarizes this because he introduces it as greed. But what it really boils down, this is the sacrifice of self-interest. Now that was an interesting way to put it for me. That was an interesting choice of words that I thought when I first read this. This is a sacrifice of self-interest, which is really the sacrifice of what I believe would be best for me. Now that's really, really difficult, right? That the sacrifice of what I believe will make me feel good, what I believe I need, what I believe should be a driving force for me. This is the sacrifice of greed is the sacrifice of self-interest, and man, it's hard. It's really difficult because we've been told in a society today that we need to drive forward, think of yourself first, who's going to take care of you if you don't take care of you, right? Which is all well and good. But the problem is then you don't have the opportunity to practice faith. You don't have the opportunity to take the appropriate actions you're supposed to be taking, to actually allow a God of your understanding to come in and work through you for other people. When you're running that way, when you're just looking out for number one, right? I'm my number one priority. You're first of all selfish and self-centered. You're only acting in self-interest. And everybody knows that, by the way. Like everybody knows you only come around when you need something. Everybody only knows that you're only calling to get something out of it. It's pretty obvious. But so to sacrifice self-interest is really to change some foundational stuff of our perspective, right? And instead practice this detachment, to practice this spiritual reliance on a God and a power greater than yourself. Now that's hard. It takes some trust, some belief, and some faith. And then eventually those things turn into a knowing. And the more knowing you have, the more this becomes a natural thing for you. But it is the sacrifice of self-interest, acting in your own self-interest. Now, and it's another sacrifice of self, right? We talked about sacrifice of self-assertion, selfishness, self-centeredness, right? We talked about anger. We've talked about, it's another sacrifice of self, right? That's what this whole chapter has been about, is just sacrificing beliefs we have, actions we have, perspectives we have to find that peace and spiritual strength he's talking about here. And it's always a sacrifice of self, right? Self-interest was this one. Now he goes in to talk about this material versus the spiritual stuff a little bit more, right? So material possessions are temporary. And we forget that, don't we, right? Because right now, if we're our number one priority, what I have defines me. What I have makes me feel comfortable. What I have makes me feel safe and secure, right? So I get wrapped up in this self-interest. I get wrapped up in these moments where, I finally feel better. I finally feel like I've got the world together, but I need to have these things in to secure that feeling. Now, this might be news to you, but you can get that feeling of safety and security outside of any material possessions, outside of any external circumstance, outside of anything, as long as you find a connection with a power greater than yourself, God of your understanding. the universe, whatever you want to call that. But if you find that, you have an inherent sense of safety and security, and these material possessions we get so attached to become less important. They become less needed. And then we can have different actions. So material possessions are temporary. We forget that, but they are temporary. You're not taking your money with you when you go. What's the saying? No one ever sees a U-Haul behind. A hearse. That's what it is. No one ever sees a U-Haul behind the hearse. You can't take your house with you. You can't take your money with you. You can't take even your family with you. You can't take your friends with you. You can't take any of your jewelry with you. It might be on a dead body, but it ain't going with you. Remember that. And that's what he's saying here. Like that in and of itself, you obtained it at one point, so it wasn't yours, and you will not keep it. That makes absolutely everything in this world temporary. Absolutely everything. You were just a temporary custodian, right? So, and in this sense, we cannot truly call them our own. So he's giving us a little bit of framework here, right? If we look at everything as temporary, right? Every single one of these books, they're temporarily in my possession until whatever happens next. I have no idea what's going to happen next, but until whatever happens next, these are temporary in my possession, right? And so he's giving us some extra framework to actually go through and restructure the way we look at things, which is pretty great, honestly. We get to go through and we get to have a different experience with these things. If we just look at them as this way, trust. You don't even have to trust his statement here. Just make an effort to practice as though it is true for a little while, and you'll see how free you can feel. You might only get a glimpse of it. You won't even get the full depth of it. But if you can get a glimpse of that peace and that strength he's talking about by practicing it as viewing everything as temporary, this isn't mine. I don't own it. I don't possess it. It's temporarily under my care, right? It's really important. And in the sense, we cannot truly call them our own. So it's not mine. I'm just taking care of it. They are merely in our keeping for a short time. But spiritual possessions are eternal. As for your own, are eternal and must ever remain with us, right? So when I realize that unselfishness is the right way to be, honesty is truth, right? But he's talking about, this applies to any spiritual principle, right? But the reality of it is, he's talking about unselfishness, right? So let me read it again. Spiritual possessions are eternal and must remain with us, right? We carry that with us, regardless of what we're doing in any immediate moment, regardless of our circumstances in our lives, whatever is good is happening, whatever bad is happening. If we have these spiritual principles with us, this spiritual belief of unselfishness, that goes with us throughout time. And for those of us who think there's a soul attached to this physical body that will continue on past the death of this physical manifestation, right? Or this physical attachment to the body, then it carries with the soul. It's an understanding we've learned, right? It's that peace that can continue forward. But even if you don't believe in that, to know that you can carry this deep sense of peace and spiritual strength with you, regardless of circumstance, is really, really important. It goes with you all the time. That is yours. Perspective, knowledge, enlightenment, that is yours. None of this material stuff. This comes and this goes. This world, we see it all the time in this world. Money comes, money goes. People come, people go. Relationships, possessions. It all comes, it all goes. It gets replaced. New things take place. Time is always temporary. So then he goes on. So spiritual possessions are eternal. Then the next sentence says, unselfishness is a spiritual possession, which is only secured by ceasing to covet material possessions and enjoyments. Okay. I like this whole thing. Let me read it again. Unselfishness is a spiritual possession which is only secured by ceasing to covet material possessions and enjoyments, by ceasing to regard things as for your own special and exclusive pleasure, and by our readiness to yield them up for the good of others. So, spiritual possessions we keep with us. Then he says unselfishness, which is the sacrifice of self-interest. That's what we're talking about here, is a spiritual possession. And you can only achieve it by giving up coveting material possessions and enjoyments, right? So if you have something you quite enjoy all the time, give up your attachment to it, right? Because then we start demanding it entertain us. We start demanding it make us feel good, right? We constantly going back to the well until the well's dry. That's the problem. People get that's one of the aspects of alcoholism and drug addiction that's really hard for people to do. You have to sacrifice the perceived benefit that substance gave you, right? Now that is very, very difficult, because if you're anything like me, I've gone to that well to get water so many times. That's the only way I know how to do it. I was very attached to my drinking and my drugging because it was the only thing that I felt had ever worked at some point. Now, it wasn't working for a very long time, and it never actually worked, but it made me feel better temporarily. So when it talks about this, but we cease to covet material possessions, so the things around us, and enjoyments. So the little behaviors that are self-serving, they're only because they make us feel good or enjoyment, right? We get attached to them, right? Some people get attached to being of service, and then they do all of this service just to make themselves feel better. And that's a self-interest that needs to be sacrificed. A healthy attachment and a healthy understanding of why you should be of service to other people is a foundational thing we have to learn. To be of service is the right thing to do. It is not. Being of service is done because it's the right thing to do. Being of service is not done because it makes you feel good. Now, it can make you feel good as a side effect. Doing the right thing a lot of times can make us feel good, but it can also make us feel really crappy in a moment. We hate to sacrifice our time, our money, our energy, right? Why do I do this again? Why do we want to keep showing up? Why am I solely responsible for these things, right? So so many things run through our heads, right? So, but if we only are doing it because it feels good, when it stops feeling good, we'll stop doing the right thing. And that's what he's talking about here. Your actions cannot be based on self-interest only. They have to be based on something different. Unselfishness can only come from not coveting material possessions and those little enjoyments. So, and also by ceasing to regard things as for our own special and exclusive pleasure. Right? It can be a lot of things. Like the world of pleasure today is unhinged. I'll say that much. It's anything you could think of, anything, any crazy thing, any simple thing that produces pleasure, whether it could be sex, drugs, alcohol, gambling, shopping, hoarding, whatever it is, television, social media, whatever it could be, what literally anything these days is available. And you want to own it because it gives you that dopamine rush and it makes you feel validated in some way or makes you feel okay in some way, right? You have to be willing to sacrifice those things too. All of those selfish pleasures that you have to be willing to sacrifice those things and have some faith and trust that on the other side of that sacrifice will be something more valuable and worth it, which usually is freedom and peace and serenity. But you have to trust that that'll show up if you keep doing the right things. And it's hard. Like I said, you can't do those things. Well, honestly, most people start sacrificing all these unhealthy behaviors in self-interest, right? People get in recovery for self-interest, right? But at some point, it switches over to something different. You stop doing the right thing because it makes you feel good. You start doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do, like we were saying earlier. So And then lastly, by our readiness to yield them up for the good of others, right? And it's always going to be something for the good of others. Whenever you have a possession, especially one that doesn't belong to you, but whenever you have something, right, and or you covet something, you're demanding something from it. You're asking it to do something for you inherently, and therefore asking it to change, asking it to, the person, this thing, that whatever it is, you're asking it to change, right? So when it's talking about by our readiness to yield them up for the good of others, it's always better for others and everything in this world for us not to become attached and need anything from them, to allow them to be exactly who they are, to allow them to not feel the fear and insecurity that drives this, and that wanting and that need to feel better about ourselves, to let that go and allow someone else the freedom to be exactly who they are. That's huge. That's really, really huge. So now the unselfish man, even though I like this part because it gives like a, what he gives us a picture of what it looks like. And so I'll read the whole thing, right? The unselfish man, even though he finds himself involved, so he still has things around him in riches, stands aloof. Usually I had a negative association with aloof, but in this case it's not. It's disinterested. It's not affected by, right? Aloof of the riches. In his mind, from the idea of exclusive possession. So he escapes the bitterness and fear and anxiety which ever accompany the covetous spirit. So what he's saying here is he's not telling you have to go give all your money away and live a life of poverty. No, some people do that. That's fine. If that's where your life ends up and you feel like that's the right thing to do for you. I'm not criticizing that at all. But what he's saying here is your desire to have riches is an attachment to them that is a problem, right? Sorry, I had something written. So an unselfish man is not swayed by the possessions or riches he has or does not have, right? Because he doesn't feel the need to completely devote himself to the accumulation of wealth, so he feels financially secure, right? In this, I have fear of financial insecurity. For those in 12-step programs, that's a common thing talked about because there's a promise that becomes when you become unattached to these things. It doesn't say you won't have some financial insecurity, but you won't be scared of it anymore, right? Or if you have a ton of money, you won't be egotistical or arrogant or shunning of those without. Both of those are the same, just different sides of a coin, right? And it's not to get rid of it right in the middle. It's to step out of that comparison completely. It's not to play the game anymore, right? Become unattached to money and see how much your life changes. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't not work, right? But know and have some faith that if you take the right actions, especially for your family, the right things will happen. It's really hard for a lot of people, and I know there's a lot of stuff going on out there today, so to practice this is difficult. But when you become unattached to money and wealth and property and all these things, you could then be, when you don't have it, you're okay. Then when you do get it, you remain the same, right? Somebody once said, and it's been said a lot, is money makes you more of what you are. And if you're unattached to it, money won't change you. If you're selfish, money will change you. You'll behave differently. You'll become egotistical, arrogant. You'll have this air about you that you're better than. But when you don't have any attachment to money, guess what? You're still the same person. Still the same person. You have integrity, and that's a beautiful thing. So he stands aloof in his mind from the idea of exclusive possession, because if that idea of like this money is mine, then you want to keep it. It's yours. You've incorporated it as a part of you. Then suddenly you've got all of this stuff. Just like now you start getting this fear and this anxiety. I know a lot of people that have money and they have this anxiety that they're going to lose it. Right? They have to have a certain amount or they're not comfortable. They have to have a certain amount or they're running around trying to figure something out. And it's a miserable way to live. You're giving money and possessions power over you and your sanity and your state of mind and state of being. And so escapes the bitterness and fear and anxiety of any outward accretions. Let me check that real quick. I feel like that's not the right word. Oh, it is the right word. Accretions, as being too valuable to lose. Right? I'm guessing that means accumulations. Excuse me. This is a dictionary. I meant to look this up earlier, but now you guys get to see me look it up right on the podcast with you. ACC. Accretion, increase of natural growth, the addition of external parts, the growing together of parts, right? Oh, so just the accumulation of things, right? Which makes sense in context. I guess I knew that, but I just didn't have the actual definition. But so he does not regard any of the outward accretions as being too valuable to lose. Like all of this can go. In other words, all the money can go, all the cars can go, all the people can go, all of this can go. It's not too valuable to lose. But he regards the virtue of unselfishness as being too valuable to the world, to suffering humanity, to lose or cast away. So it's the attachment to all of these things. And this is where integrity comes in, right? I talk to a lot of people about it. We choose how we want to be. If you want to be an unselfish person, right, that just hold on to that and it'll carry you very, very far, right? Choosing the character you want to embody, like the character qualities, not like make a believe a character up by any means, right? But like choosing to be an honest person, choosing to be a kind person, an unselfish, a loving person, a forgiving person, right? A just person, right? These are the things that you will carry with you. And if you become concerned with keeping that, right? He regards the virtue of unselfishness as being too valuable to lose. So all this can go. He'd rather be unselfish and not have the attachment and let all of this go than just start being selfish again and just start thrashing around to make sure he's got everything kept and everything held on to. Now, I don't know about you. That's a beautiful thing. And he keeps it because it's too valuable to the world, to the suffering humanity, he said, right? He does not regard any outward accretions as being too valuable to lose, but he regards the virtue of unselfishness as being too valuable to the world, to suffering humanity to lose or cast away. So it's not, unselfishness isn't valuable necessarily to him himself, but unselfishness is more important to carry into the world than any amount of money he could have. Now talk about a perspective. And that's something I got to tell you, I'm still striving for, I'm working towards. And I truly believe there's legitimacy to that. So, all right, we're on the last one here. So, and who is the blessed man? He's given us a final nail in the coffin, so to say. Who's the blessed man here? He who was ever hankering after more possessions, right? Thinking only of the personal pleasure he can get out of them, right? That is incredibly true. Just look at today's society. I want more money. I want more job titles. I want more cars. I want more property. I want more prestigious accolades. I want more people to like me. I want more. Right? We are a society of more. Someone will call it consumerism, whatever it is. Right? We've become addicted to accumulating things for a sense of security and worth. Right? And when we're doing that, we're constantly reaching outside of ourselves and pulling in more. We're constantly doing this and doing this. And you get one thing and you pull it in, and then you got to go get another thing and you pull it in, right? Just to give you a sense of fulfillment, just to keep building up this stockpile of nothingness. right? That you can't, the temporary things you can't take with you. That's what you're getting. You're getting a pile of things that will have no effect on you long term, but you feel better in a moment. Is that a blessed man? Or is he who is ever ready to give up what he has for the good and happiness of others? Is that the blessed man? I know my answer, right? This can all go. This can all go, right? This can all be used to be of service to God and others in my life. That's the blessed man. And that's the man I aspire to be like, honestly. That's the man I would love to actually embody and personify. Because that is the blessed man. Unselfishness. And this is the last line, by greed, happiness is destroyed. By not greed, happiness is restored. Greed is a byproduct of our desire to have the world make us feel worthwhile when we shouldn't be looking for the world to do that. We're supposed to be connecting with a power greater than ourselves, the God of our understanding, that universe, that source, that nature, whatever it is. But you're supposed to get your sense of worth and value there. And you bring that to the world. We've lost that. We've got it backwards right now. We've got it backwards right now. And it's not greed. So unselfishness is what restores happiness. Because happiness isn't out here. It's in here. And when we stop having these covetous and greedy needs from the world, then we find some peace, we find some serenity, we find some contentment with life, and everything changes. So that's such a great one. I absolutely loved that. I hope y'all did too. I really think I love this chapter. Again, this is like 4 paragraphs that we're reading at a time almost. And like the depth and the perspective in it, absolutely love it. So I hope y'all enjoyed that too. I appreciate everybody that has put the time in and follows along with the channel. So thank y'all so much. And until next time, thanks.